Welcome back, everybody. You're listening to Cavs Talk Podcast. My name's Kyle Murray. I'm here with my co-host, Mark Canterbury. How's it going, Mark?
Pretty good, Kyle. Can't complain. Excited about the season starting. How about you?
Yeah, very excited about it. Preseason starting up in about a week here. NBA season starting in about 3 weeks. NBA just released the first half of the schedule for the season. We see the Cavs hosting the Charlotte Hornets on December 23rd. That'll be our home opener and opener for the season. But first, we want to talk about what the Cavs have done in the past few weeks of the offseason. Biggest departure for the roster has definitely been Tristan Thompson. We saw the Cavs not re-sign him, and we've seen him sign now with the Boston Celtics. How do you feel about that, Mark?
I do think it's a little painful for me to see another Cav go to Boston, especially considering the rivalry we had with them back in the Bron era, both Bron eras, I should say. In terms of losing Tristan Thompson, though, I have to admit I'm not crazy broken up about it. I've never been a huge Tristan Thompson. Well, okay, I shouldn't say that. In recent years, have not been a huge Tristan Thompson fan. Big props to TT, obviously, for being a part of that championship team, and I'll always have respect for that. He's a great rebounder, good hustle guy. I do think it's a good idea for Cleveland to get some youth in here, kind of pivot. I think a big thing for this organization is realizing that this isn't the LeBron era anymore, and we kind of have to make our own identity outside of him. So I think that maybe this is a step in the right direction, also frees up a little cap space for us. All in all, I think it's not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, I definitely agree. My thinking on re-signing Tristan was how much he was going to ask for. And I don't think I would have been comfortable paying him as much as Boston did. I think they paid him around $8 or $9 million a year for the next 2 years. He's a good player, but yeah, like you were saying, you could definitely see his value diminish after LeBron left, as he was just strictly a role player who was really good at offensive rebounding.
And to add on to that, I also think that in today's cap climate with COVID and everything, and we don't know what the salary cap is going to be moving forward, I think that means every team has to be a little bit more judicial about how they're spending their dollars. And I just think the rate of return on Tristan Thompson didn't really meet what the Cavs are trying to accomplish.
Completely agree. Plus, we have Kevin Love, Andre Drummond, bring in some other big men. He might have taken up some minutes that we'd rather give to younger players.
100%.
One thing I do want to bring up that there's been a lot of talk about is retiring his jersey after he retires from the NBA. What do you think about that?
Stop it. No shot. Tristan Thompson, like I said, all respect to TT, but we're talking about a dude who averages 9 points and 8 rebounds a game. We're not retiring his jersey. Yes, he was on the championship team, but look at how he represented himself off the court. As a Cleveland Cavalier, terribly. He's constantly in the media. He's cheating on his girlfriend. He's knocking women up. It goes down in the DMs. I can't get behind retiring the jersey of someone who I personally feel is kind of a clown. That's how I feel about it. I like him on the court in 2016. Any other year, any other activity other than getting offensive rebounds, no shot. That's a hard pass for me.
That's so funny. It goes down in the DMs. I completely agree. I think he's not worthy of retiring a number really with any franchise, regardless of how special that 2016 championship was. I would ask, who do you think we will retire from that 2016 squad? I would say, obviously, LeBron. Kyrie, Kevin Love, how would you consider them?
I think it's an obvious decision to retire Kevin Love's jersey. Because even after LeBron, he stuck around. And yes, I know you'd say the same thing about Tristan. But the difference between Tristan Thompson and Kevin Love is Kevin Love didn't have to stay here. Other teams definitely would have signed him looking for a third star, making for a championship push. And he held it down in Cleveland, represented himself well outside of the court. He's a big advocate for mental health. He's just an all-around, by all accounts, a good dude. And he's a far better basketball player than TT. I think it's an obvious choice to retire Kevin Love. I honestly think you retire Kyrie's jersey just off of the shot. I mean, realistically, we don't win that championship without him hitting that shot, in my opinion. Now, I do think there's one other person who maybe you retire their jersey from that team, and you're going to laugh at me, but Delly. You retire Delly's jersey, 100%. If he finishes his career as a Cavalier, you do it, 100%.
Yeah, Delly Didn't he tear Kyle Korver's ACL diving for that loose ball? That was probably the biggest contribution
Yeah.
he's ever had to the Cavs franchise.
I mean, are we not talking about the fact that he D'd up Steph Curry, locked him down for 2 games in the NBA Finals?
When Kyrie and Kevin were out, this is kind of weird to say because Tristan Thompson was still there. I actually think I would say Delly was LeBron's wingman
Oh, 100%. The pick and roll?
for that 2018.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mad chemistry. Dude's a point god.
I think it's a joke. I don't think retiring Delly's jersey is anything that should be given serious thought. I don't think anyone is. I know people are giving retiring Tristan Thompson's jersey serious thought, but it seems like we both agree that shouldn't happen.
Yes.
Whether or not it will happen, we'll have to see in the next, I don't know, 10 years or
Yes.
so. But I think we agree that LeBron, Kyrie, Kevin Love, and for all the reasons you mentioned, should be the 3 that have their jerseys retired within the next decade or so.
100%. And Delly. Continue.
Oh my gosh, dude. I can't stop laughing about down in the DMs. Holy crap. Got me on such a laughing binge. With Tristan being the only significant departure from the roster, probably want to move on and talk about how our roster stands now as we've got about a week to go until preseason starts up. Main core players I'd want to talk about, probably Colin Sexton and Darius Garland. Those are the 2 with the biggest question marks surrounding, are they going to take that leap coming into this next year? Colin Sexton obviously took a leap moving into his 2nd year last year. Is he going to take another one moving into his 3rd year? And Darius Garland, is he going to take a leap moving into his 2nd year? Kind of just like Colin Sexton did last year.
I'm going to go yes and no.
Okay, yes on Colin Sexton, no on Darius Garland.
Correct. I'm going to go yes and no. I think Colin Sexton has shown improvement in terms of decision making. He takes better care of the ball than he did 2 years ago. According to the eye test, he's doing all the things that turns a promising rookie into a good player. Darius Garland, on the other hand, to be honest, from day one, I've never thought that he has the sauce, for lack of a better term. He's not a particularly good shooter. Good college defense typically doesn't translate to the NBA that well. I didn't see anything that amazed me last year. I don't think he's it. And I think us drafting Isaac Okoro and not a big man even kind of speaks to the fact that we're not super sold about Darius on the guard or the wing. I think Colin Sexton's clearly the leader of this team in terms of the offense, and Darius hasn't quite figured out where he fits in yet. So to be honest, I think that's a no in terms of him making that next leap.
I think that the only place Darius Garland can fill in would be that point guard spot. I don't think he's going to fill in as a shooting guard, and especially not as a small forward. And I think Colin Sexton has potential to fill in at either guard spot, point guard or shooting guard, really dependent on how Darius Garland does. If Darius Garland progresses well, I think Darius Garland will be the point guard and Colin Sexton will be the shooting guard. If he doesn't, maybe we slot Colin Sexton into that point guard spot and find someone else to fill the shooting guard role. In terms of how I feel about them progressing, I agree on Colin Sexton. I'm higher on Darius Garland. He's gained some weight coming into training camp and moving into the preseason. I think I read that he is at 192 pounds now, and he was at 175 last season. So he's gained 17 pounds, probably put some more muscle on him, been working out quite a bit. Remains to be seen. I don't really have any substantial evidence that he looks better because we haven't really seen anything. But hearing from coaches talking about how he played in that bubble at the end of last season and how he's playing in training camp moving into the season seems encouraging. But then again, you can always say, well, that's what the front office and coaches are supposed to say about people in training camp. You know, you're going to hype people up moving into the preseason just because whether you want to improve their trade stock or just get them motivated to move into the beginning of the season. Any number of reasons that you would speak positively about someone and exaggerate their improvement.
Absolutely. Now, I will say it is possible I could be wrong about Garland because one thing to note is that this offseason, especially for teams that did not make the playoffs, they've had a lot of time to work on their game. Obviously, there was the bubble, but they had the time in between the bubble and then post-bubble. There's been a ton of time to work on their games and develop. So maybe, Darius Maybe he's been, training like Goku in the offseason. Maybe he's ready to take that leap. I'm hopeful, but I'm pessimistic.
Gotcha. We've got a few more core players before we move on to role players, people coming back, people coming into the team, etc. Chetty Osmond, Andre Drummond, Kevin Love, and Kevin Porter Jr. seem to be the remaining players we see as the core, maybe future of the franchise, regardless of what you think of Andre Drummond and Kevin Love in terms of being dealt at the deadline. They're two of our best players, so definitely list them in that category.
Absolutely.
How do you feel about Chetty Osman in terms of Isaac Okoro coming into the team? Where do you see his role being, and how might that change throughout the course of the season?
Sure. So I think that Isaac Okoro obviously got drafted for a reason. I think the Cavs organization loves Chetty. I think that Chetty learned a lot playing under LeBron. I think, as I said last episode, he's a great role player, and he's a great backup small forward. I think at this point he's got some veteran experience in the NBA and even playing in the playoffs. So I think that in terms of helping develop Isaac, he's going to be a great resource. I think he's good for team chemistry, but I think that I would have to assume that Chetty knows he's not the answer at small forward moving forward based on the draft. And I think that if anyone's going to move into that role gracefully and accept his role, I think that Chetty's one to do it. So I think it's a good. I don't think we're going to see a drop in production from him, and I think that he's going to be a good resource for Isaac Okoro.
Yeah, I think we might actually see an uptick in production from him moving into that backup small forward role. Going from playing 30 to 35 minutes a game to maybe 20 to 25 minutes a game, I think he's going to be able to be a lot more efficient, not have to do as much, and be able to focus on what he's good at and how he can contribute. And I think it might improve him as a player to be slotted into really what his skill and talent is made for.
I agree.
Which is a good player in that second unit.
And he gets to go up against other teams' second units, which I think is obviously going to be an easier matchup for him than having to go against the starting small forward every game.
Yeah, it's nice to have a second unit with players that you feel confident in rather than having to rely on 4 or 5 starters to carry you throughout the entire game.
Absolutely.
We've also got Andre Drummond and Kevin Love. I'm thinking and I'm hoping that Andre Drummond is going to be dealt before the deadline, despite how into Cleveland he seems with his recent Browns fandom. Kevin Love, not so sure. I think he'll be a lot more difficult to trade. And like we were talking about with retiring his jersey, I mean, his contract is not great. His contract is horrible, but don't mind him sticking around, and he seems to be a great veteran presence. Like you said, behind the scenes, in terms of mental health, he's been a great advocate. So happy to have him as one of the faces of the franchise. How do you feel about those two big men?
I believe that Andre still can contribute to winning basketball and be a second or third best player on a contending team. I think it's just going to take a little more talent around him. He obviously doesn't have the same offensive firepower as a lot of other star big men in the league, so I think we have to pair him with someone who can really light it up to get the most out of him. But I think it could work for Andre in Cleveland. I'm not quite ready to give up on that idea yet. I appreciate the Cavs front office for going out and trying to get, good players. I liked the effort, if you will. In terms of Kevin Love, I agree with you that, it's not a great contract, but I think if anyone deserves it, it is him. I'm a huge Kevin Love fan, always have been. But I think in terms of that, it is what it is. And we're just going to have to deal with it till his contract's up, and then we can either re-sign him at a reasonable rate or, let him move on to greener pastures. But I think that while he's here, he's a consummate professional. He's going to play his best, and he's going to try to win games for us. And that's really all you can ask for.
Totally agreed on Drummond. I think he's a similar case to Tristan Thompson, where for me, if we don't deal him this year, it's really just going to depend on what he's asking for. If he wants a contract similar to what this year's looking for him, I think he's making about $28 million. Can't imagine him asking for that. But if he's asking for anywhere close to that, I'd want to let him go. But just like you talked about with Tristan, Kevin Love, if they want to get re-signed for a more reasonable rate, I'd be happy to have them.
I agree.
Last core player that we listed here is Kevin Porter Jr., definitely the most controversial of anyone that we've talked about so far. He's gotten in trouble with the law recently in quite a few cases. Not really sure where those cases lie in terms of going in front of a judge or a jury, but he hasn't been participating in training camp so far. Not sure when he'll start. Not sure if he will miss any of the beginning of the regular season. We definitely have high hopes for him, and we definitely think he's a player with a ton of potential and someone that we want to succeed, but we're not really sure when we'll be able to see him. What do you think about him?
Well, all Cavs Talk podcast fans know that I'm a huge Kevin Porter Jr. fan. I was heartbroken to hear that he did get arrested the other day when he was in that car crash. Thank God everyone's all right. I do think that he is young. I think that he's made some mistakes. I don't know anyone who can say they haven't. I think that he is at a turning point where he needs to start getting it together because I don't think there's that many more chances coming down the pike. I think that he has all the talent in the world. I think he needs to, for lack of a better word, just buckle down and block out the noise and just focus on playing basketball for a little bit. I think that's what's gotten him to this point, and I think he needs to stick to that formula if he wants to see continued success in the NBA. I hope that he rejoins the team soon. I hope that the legal issues get sorted out. If the allegations are true, I hope that there are consequences for his actions and he deals with that accordingly. But until, a judge says that he's guilty, I think we just kind of need to keep our nose to the grindstone, just play basketball and go from there.
The nice thing is that the Cavs coaching staff has really been in full support of him. JB Bickerstaff has said that Kevin Porter Jr. is someone that they want to have around and someone that the Cavs organization backs completely. So not only is he going to put forth the work to fix his issues on his own, but he's also going to have the Cavs organization backing him up in that sense. So plenty of resources for him to work with. And like you said, we wish him the best and hope that we'll be able to see him succeed in the NBA soon. In terms of role players on the team, two in particular I want to highlight would be Delly and Larry Nance Jr. Two leaders on the team, Delly being brought back into the team, Larry Nance being someone who's been on the team for a few years now, both of them functioning as veteran leaders in the locker room. How do you feel about them?
I love them. I love Delly. I love Larry Nance Jr. I think they're both great Cleveland Cavaliers, first and foremost. Delly obviously loves it here, or he wouldn't have come back. Larry Nance Jr., obviously his dad played here, was a great player for us. I think he enjoys having an opportunity to walk in those footsteps, if you will. I think it seems like him and his dad have a great relationship, and he's just happy to be here. Unfortunately for Larry, he's not a player who's been able to see a lot of winning in his career, but I do genuinely believe that he wants for that to happen in Cleveland. He's obviously very athletic. He's a hard-working, hard-effort player. And I think within the right role, he's a great fit for any team if you give him the right minutes and the right opportunities. I'm hoping that Colin or maybe Isaac Okoro, they kind of unlock the offense a little bit, because I think if you open up the lanes for him, he's going to be able to slash a lot more effectively, and once he gets a full head of steam going to the rim, I mean, we've all seen he's a monster. Delly, any team would be happy to have a backup point guard who manages the game as well as Dellavedova. He's always going to give you 100% effort, 120% effort. He's always going to be diving for loose balls, making the tough play. Not to sound like a cliche, but he's from Australia. He works hard, he plays hard, he's a good guy all around. I think that they're both a great fit for the organization. I think they both like being here, and I'm excited to have them.
Yeah, talking about Shetty and then moving on to these two guys makes me pretty excited for the second unit on the team. Delly and Larry, two guys who can bring a lot of energy into that second unit, as well as some skills and game management. I'm happy to have him around. Don't see him going anywhere anytime soon, and excited to see them with that second unit. We also have Dante Exum, who I'm not as excited about. Haven't really seen much that I liked from him throughout his time with the Cavs over the past year or two, but he is there. I think he'll be that third point guard, maybe see 5 to 10 minutes a game, if that. How do you feel about Dante?
I'm going to be honest. The only thing I remember about Dante Exum is that he was the 2K My Career rival back in 2016. And I remember thinking to myself, oh, this kid's probably pretty good. And then following him for a couple years in Utah, and he sucked. So I'll be honest, I'm not crazy thrilled about him. I do know that he's been dealing with a lot of injuries in his career and that he hasn't had an opportunity to play sustained healthy minutes over a season, if you will. So maybe he turns it around. He's not too old. Might still be a productive player in him yet. He's no 2K rival. I don't know.
Definitely a good case as to why we shouldn't judge players based on how we play with them in 2K, because I definitely do remember that. He was pretty good, and then got excited to see him on the Cavs, and definitely did not meet expectations. Someone who is coming into the season with decent expectations is Dylan Windler. We drafted him last year. Everyone got really excited. He was supposed to be a great sharpshooter, and then unfortunately, his rookie season was riddled with injuries. This season, he seems to be coming in healthy. Cavs staff seems to be excited about his potential on the team. I'm really excited about it. I see him being a great role player, someone who can kind of get the green light and shoot the lights out every once in a while. How do you feel about Dylan?
I think any sharpshooter is valuable in today's NBA. Obviously, as the game has progressed to more perimeter shooting and spacing, I think they've become more valuable. So I think that if he can stay healthy and stay productive, he's going to be a huge addition to the offense and kind of open things up for a lot of our slashers. I think that if he's healthy, he'll contribute.
Yeah, definitely agree. Hopefully he can stay healthy this year. Seems to have a decently high ceiling and someone we'll be looking at throughout the beginning of the regular season.
Absolutely.
Also got a few incoming players with Tristan Thompson, Alfonso McKinney, Jordan Bell leaving the team. Incoming, we've got Damian Dotson, JaVale McGee, and of course our first round draft pick, Isaac Okoro. I'm excited to see JaVale and Isaac come into the team. Damian Dotson was an okay player for the Knicks. He's had a questionable past. Someone that I would have to see something exciting to get excited about him. We'll see how he fits into the roster, assuming he makes the roster. But the two guys I really want to talk about now are JaVale and Isaac. How do you feel about JaVale, first of all?
I personally love JaVale. He's one of my favorite players in the league, and not just for his meme ability. I think something that everyone needs to remember is that this dude has asthma, and he can really only play 15, 20 minutes a game. So to get the kind of production that teams like the Lakers and the Warriors have gotten out of him in the limited role that he can play, he's given 110% while he's out there. He might not be the best decision maker with the ball in NBA history, but he's a very hard worker, and he's been on championship teams. He knows winning basketball. I think he's a much cheaper, honestly probably better Tristan Thompson replacement. I'm really excited. I thought it was a great pickup, and I'm very excited to see what he does in Cleveland.
I think he'll be a great backup center, yeah. Andre Drummond is going to work really well in that starting unit. As we said with a lot of players on this team, that second unit, JaVale McGee is going to come in and give you a really good 10 to 15 minutes per game as a lob threat, as a defensive center, and as a good rebounder on the team. Isaac Okoro, definitely the Cavs player who's going to receive the most attention in the coming weeks. Our first round draft pick, 5th overall. As we were talking about Chetty, we mentioned Isaac is probably our future starting small forward at some point in this season. Great defensive player, developing offensive player. I'm really excited to see him. I'm excited to see him in training camp, preseason, regular season. How are you feeling about Isaac?
I'll admit, as we know from last episode, he wasn't my number one pick at the 5 spot, if you will. I think that he is a very talented player. I think it's definitely not a bad pick for Cleveland. I think he is going to take some time to develop into a offensive threat at the NBA level. I hope that his defense translates, because I know that's not always the case. I would have liked to maybe see us draft a more impactful offensive player, because I think that's part of where our team lacks. I think we also lack on defense, if I'm being honest, so I think that Isaac Okoro is a good addition in that sense, and I hope that he does nothing but prosper. I mean, I hope he's a star.
Yeah, we were, if not the worst, one of the bottom 2 or 3 defensive teams in the league, so
Right.
You could probably say that about offense as well. Got to bring in someone to fill some sort of need that we have, and I think I had him at number 5 in terms of my top 10. He got drafted at number 5.
Look at that.
Wasn't far and away my favorite choice, but I'm very happy to have him. I'll be interested to see how Obi Toppin does with the Knicks. People seem to be raving about him at the moment. But like we said, everyone raves about everyone in training camp.
Absolutely. I really wanted Obi.
I know he was definitely your first choice based on who we had available at that 5th pick. But remains to be seen over the next year, couple of years, how Isaac will fare compared to players that we could have chosen. In general, just a lot of players to be excited about. A lot of players that have question marks moving into training camp and into the preseason. So we're excited to watch that. We do have some plans moving forward into the preseason. We're going to try and live stream at least one game, see how that goes. Have another podcast at the end of the preseason before our opener against the Hornets. Maybe some predictions, starting lineup talk. win total talk, stuff like that. So keep an eye out for updates on our Twitter. Mark, anything you want to say for the outro?
Not much, Kyle, just that I'm really excited and I can't wait for us to get into some real meaningful basketball.
Well, we'll start that on the 12th against the Pacers. We've got about a week until that date, so keep up with us on Twitter until then, and we'll talk to you then. Go Cavs.
Later.